When Rick Baker asked me to serve as chair of this event back in January, I was truly shocked and very honored. And thank you, Rick and the Grand Rapids Chamber, for allowing me to help showcase all of the great things that you do in the community. So after recovering from the surprise, I said, well, yes, of course, why not? And then that voice in the back of your head starts with well, there's kind of a few reasons why not, but we'll just blow on by those. But leaders, we all know that we face challenges every single day, and we can either rise to that challenge, or we can, and be part of that solution and part of the conversation, or we can just kind of quietly sit by and let things happen. That's never really been my MO, and so here I am, standing proudly on this stage, hoping to adequately represent the Grand Rapids Chamber and all that it does for the businesses in our community, and to adequately represent the leadership in this room. Today's event wouldn't be possible without the generous contributions from our supporters. Before we get started today, I'd like to thank our sponsors who made this program possible. Please hold your applause until all sponsors have been named. Premier sponsor, Independent Bank. Our segment sponsors, sponsoring 3 of our leadership lessons, is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Our event underwriters are Amway, Spectrum Health, and WinQuest Group. Please check out our business center sponsor, Priority Health. They're out in the Crown Foyer. Our lead supporters are Chase Creative, DTE Energy, Consumers Energy, Gerald R. Ford International Airport, HAP, and Meyer. Our executive sponsor is Grand Rapids Business Journal. Furniture sponsor is Interphase Interiors. Media Row, Wood TV. Chamber champions are Commerce Bank, Insperity, Huntington Bank, Mercantile Bank, Rockford Construction, Roman Manufacturing, and Trinity Health. Our technology sponsor is Team Logic IT. Our podcast sponsor is Davenport University. So please help me in welcoming all of today's sponsors. So check out more information on our sponsors in today's event by scanning the QR code on your name tag. The word why is a key focus of this year's CEO Summit. We're here today in part to explore the question, why Grand Rapids, why now, especially from a business perspective. It's an important question to ask because as most successful leaders will tell you, it's not the what or the how that drives success in a business, but rather the why. And that's absolutely true, but it is closely followed by how. How are we going to do that if current systems and modes of thinking don't support change? Fortunately, we have a fantastic list of presenters with us today to help us explore these questions in greater detail. Some of these folks I know personally, some I've just met this morning. All of them bring great insight into why they chose Grand Rapids as a place to live, work, and play. We'll hear from Dr. Anthony Chang from Banff Health, Dr. Philomena Mantella from GVSU, Steve Heisinga from Allied Mechanical Services, Nate Cucci from Fyan Zylstra, and Scott Ryan from Gentex will talk about tackling talent, which includes some very interesting workforce ideas. Let's give them a round of applause. We also have an incredible panel of subject matter experts, including Max Bissell from Bissell Corporation, my colleague Rabia Jamal from Waséyabek Development Company, Raj Kothari from Cascade Partners, and the panel will be moderated by Otaha Abande of the Grand Rapids Chamber. So let's give them a round of applause as well. For me, the question why Grand Rapids is more about my journey, both geographically and kind of challenging the status quo. Unlike many people I've met over the last 6 years in West Michigan, I'm not a native of Michigan. My family lives in a state you Michiganders might have heard of, Ohio. So, yep, I paused to let all the groaning get past us. So, regardless of whether you're a Spartan or a Wolverine or a Laker or Bronco, I understand that many people in Michigan have an opinion about our neighboring state. But so that we can move forward without any hard feelings, I did not attend and have no allegiance to that university in Columbus that shall remain unnamed. I actually graduated from Kent State in 1989 with a degree in biology and conservation, and immediately went to work for a company in Ohio that specialized in emergency response and hazardous waste cleanup. I was there 3 days, and I was given my first project assignment in Goose Bay, Labrador, clear up there. I didn't know where it was when they told me that's where I was going. It was my first plane ride, my first trip outside of the United States, and the first stop on my professional journey, which has been a 30-year trek around the globe, and included many successes, but some really spectacular failures too. So after 3 years in Goose Bay and other places working on environmental disaster sites, I went to work for a medical device manufacturing company in Arkansas. During one of my annual reviews, the manager explained to me that I would not be getting a raise despite meeting all of my performance goals. And I said, well, why not? I was married at the time, and I remember his words to this day. Deidra, you don't need a raise. You have a husband to take care of you. Right? Wow. Wow. So I resolved in that exact moment to live my life differently, and so I did. I started my own project management and health and safety consulting company and performed work throughout the United States and the Pacific Rim. Most notably, I spent 3 years at Midway Island, where the Battle of Midway took place, out in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. So how's that for embracing change? Here's a photo of Midway Island, all glorious 40 acres of it. I can tell you the place feels even smaller if you're one of 5 women in a 300-person team of contractors cleaning up the island. There were no telephone lines, no cell reception, and the only contact with the outside world was one military supply plane a week that often couldn't land because of low cloud cover. 3 years later, I took my company to Guam and tried to grow my business there. I had some great experiences, but I also faced discrimination and harassment that was frustrating and frightening, including 2 bullets that came through my office window when I was in it to discourage me from competing with a local company. Scared and just a little bit disillusioned at that point, I pivoted again and started an import-export company and headed off to Bali, Indonesia. Because why wouldn't I go to Bali, Indonesia? In Bali, I shipped art and handmade goods to the United States for sale. The photo on the screen is not mine, but this is exactly what my procurement, shipping, and receiving department looked like in Bali. Yep. Yeoman Polos, my local business manager, is one of the most wonderful people I ever met, and we had some amazing experiences working together. I'll tell you a story. We were on his scooter, looked just like that. I was on the back. We had some bags hanging off of it, quite not that bad, but we're going down a 2-lane dirt road, kind of in the middle of the jungle, and he stops, and I kind of peek around his shoulder to see why we're stopping, and there was a python, this big around. I couldn't see its head, and I couldn't see its tail, and we wisely stopped and decided not to make it a speed bump, and just waited for it to go by. But I tell this snake story because Anthony Chang, who I'll be introducing later, has his own snake story, and I encourage you, any other presenters today, if you have some fascinating reptile story, to tie us all together. If all this travel is starting to sound like a grand prize on a game show, I can assure you it was anything but a vacation. There were a lot of unknowns, challenges, obstacles, and totally new experiences that I faced on my own. Excuse me. But these seemingly unconnected adventures, often with complete strangers who didn't look like me, taught me a lot about bravery, humility, honesty, love, truth, wisdom, and respect. Slides aren't keeping up. Didn't know if I could help out that with this. Afraid to push buttons because I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, taught me a lot about those attributes. And little did I know then that I would eventually go on to lead a tribal organization that practices these tenets as the 7 grandfather teachings. In 2000, after discovering that I loved importing but hated going to wholesale conventions and retail selling, didn't quite think that one all the way through, I returned to the US and to the environmental industry full-time. Between running my own company and consulting for other firms, I worked in California, Ohio, Arkansas, Missouri, Hawaii, Arizona, Idaho, Washington State. I'm sure a few I've forgotten. And by that time, I had started 6 companies. In 2006, I moved to Anchorage, Alaska to work for Jacobs Engineering. It was here that I found an extremely impactful mentor that I remain close friends with to this day. Terry Heikala empowered me to take on any and all challenges that I thought I could handle. This is where I worked with my first Alaska Native Corporation and where I believe my current leadership style began to solidify. In 2016, I took my current job as CEO of Waséyabek Development Company. It's the non-gaming economic development company for the Nottawasepi Huron Band of the Potawatomi Indians. It's been an amazing experience. I've been able to employ all of my learned skills in bucking the system, and I have a couple of representatives from our tribal council and our WDC board that I want to thank for allowing me to do that. But in 6 short years, we've done what has never been done in Indian country before, not in this time frame. We're changing the way Indian country approaches economic diversification. We're thinking differently, we're acting differently, we're challenging stereotypes, challenging outdated systems, and producing different results. And I have no doubt we'll accomplish the goal that has been set for us to be a $1 billion company by 2040. But when I arrived in Grand Rapids to begin this journey, I wasn't sure what to expect. I had no ties to the region and no real point of reference. After being in Alaska, I did a quick Google search and discovered that GR actually has more sunlight and is warmer than Anchorage, so Yahtzee, that had that going for me. So for me, the question why Grand Rapids really didn't start to hit me until just a few years ago. I've lived in a lot of places and never for more than 3 years in my adult life, but I've been in Michigan for 6 years now, and this is what I believe to be true. While Grand Rapids is a city that's home to global companies and people of tremendous influence, it's also small enough and accessible enough that anyone can make a difference. A place where stored potential is driving a new system that supports it. There's a communal fabric that exists here, and it's found in all walks of life, from neighborhood associations to faith and school communities, from business districts to civic organizations. The people involved in these groups unite behind a shared vision and pull together for the common good. It's a place where you can fulfill your destiny and directly affect change. The evidence is everywhere. Walk around downtown and you'll find statues recognizing some of our most humble yet impactful icons, such as Chief Noonday, the leader of the Grand River Band of Ottawa Indians, Anna Bissell, one of the first female CEOs in the nation, Lyman Parks, the first African-American mayor of the city, former First Lady Betty Ford, a leading voice for women's rights, breast cancer awareness, and substance abuse treatment. And you'll find a statue of U.S. Senator Arthur Vandenberg, an architect of the United Nations and NATO, at the foot of the McKay Tower, a building Waséyabek now co-owns with Gun Lake. These were ordinary people, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, tribal leaders, business owners, community servants, who did extraordinary things. But if we're honest and transparent and vulnerable, we don't yet have it right. Not yet. We have neighbors who are struggling and a community recently affected by tragedy. So now more than ever, we need to do better. We need to summon the better angels of our nature, as Abraham Lincoln called them, to help us move forward as business and community leaders. But we also need to summon that rebel within us, the one that bristles at the words, "You can't do that," or "That's how we've always done it, and it isn't working." Fortunately, the willingness to pivot to a better path is ever present here. Public and private organizations have worked together to elevate this city to a point where we are often viewed as a leading location to start a business, raise a family, advance a career, experience the arts, or enjoy great beer. We're the envy of many other cities around the country, and few places can offer the opportunities that Grand Rapids does. I'll conclude by saying that as CEO, I've learned that leadership is about people and about purpose. The people within an organization or community, not just the top executives, are the ones who drive success. But in order for them to do so, leaders need to make room for them. Leaders need to show their own passion and a willingness to break free from traditional thinking that no longer serves us. In doing so, they shall set a positive culture and establish a shared vision, the why, if you will, closely followed by, and this is how we can make it happen. So the responsibility for those of us in this room today is to be open and vulnerable, to be humble, hungry, and smart about how we encourage, evolve, and embrace the change needed for all of us, to do our part to create a thriving and prosperous West Michigan for all. Thank you.